I'm Georgia. I'm a sports rehabilitator from Atherton Physiotherapy and Sports Clinic. Um, my main interest is getting people back to fitness from sports, in all different types of sports. And today we're here chatting to Ian, who is the main guy in Atherton for running. So Ian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, yeah. My name's Ian Maddrell and I run for the Atherton Running Club. I'm also the club secretary of the Atherton Running Club as well. I've been running with them for around about, I actually forget when I started, I think it's around about 13 years now. And what I've done is over the years, I initially started off just kind of running for fitness, and then I sort of progressed to events. Started off with the Manchester 10K, was the first event I ever ran, which I think was back in 2013. I've still got the t-shirt for it. And then gradually from there, I signed up for a half marathon, which unfortunately was called the toughest road half marathon they claimed in the world, but I don't think it was actually that tough. And then really progressed from there. So the first marathon I ever ran, we at the club we did a relay marathon. So we did like 4 sections of the Manchester Marathon. And then I thought, oh, that first wasn't too bad. That I reckon I can probably do the whole thing. So I think it was in 2016 that I first ran the Manchester Marathon, and I've progressed from there. So I've also ran ultra marathons in the Lake District. I ran the Race to the Stones race, which runs across the Sandstone Path, which runs across the south of England. So that was a 63-mile ultramarathon that took place over a day. My most recent one was an event called the Lap, which took place in the Lake District, which was a 48-mile circumnavigation of Windermere, and that went up some of the peaks around there.
Wow. So you would probably consider yourself a bit of an expert then, seeing as you've been doing it for kind of so long.
Yeah, I don't know about an expert. I mean, my kind of thing was obviously starting off kind of running for fitness. So what I started doing was I then kind of progressed to going for different times and trying to get like under an hour on a 10K. I nearly got under 2 hours on a half marathon, but not quite. And then what I did then was I actually switched from the road faster pace to a bit more of the trail running. So what we did there was kind of go out on the trails, and obviously then you encounter like hills, different conditions underfoot. So that kind of changed it. And the ultra marathons that I've done and the marathons since then have actually all been off-road running events. So that's how I've kind of got through that.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the running group. So when did the running group form?
Yeah, we think it was about 2010, but our history is a little bit hazy as to how it actually developed out of. So it actually developed out of Astley and Tilsley Runners, great running group. No disputes with them. So someone sadly left the Astley and Tilsley running group because they wanted to set up their own running group, and one of our ethos was initially. We always do different routes. So every time that we go out running, we run on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We run typically between 3 and 6 miles for each session, but we're kind of a no runner left behind sort of group. So we adjust our pace to make sure that people are together. We're talking to each other, so it's always like a sort of conversational running club that we're in. And as I say, we always go different routes, so no one gets bored with where are we going tonight. It's not the same again and again and again. So we'll always do different things at the moment, because obviously in our winter season we'll do a mixture of road running and trail running, and then usually during the summer we'll switch entirely to the trails, because there's some really nice places around Atherton. You can go to Tilsley, Lee, you can go up to kind of 4-lane ends and places like that. You can also go up to West Horton, so there's really nice trails that go all around there. And so we discover new places and new places to go running, so everyone hopefully has a good time, and it keeps it interesting as well.
Good. How many people would you say roughly are in the group?
We've got quite a big presence on Facebook, but fortunately, because we've got a few hundred members who are actually members of our Facebook group, fortunately not all of them turn up every night. So it's a much smaller group that we've got. Our our biggest run has ever been 21 people who turned up on an individual night, but where we kind of settle down is we settle down really towards the 7 to 10 numbers. That sort of, again, it varies with people's lives because people have things like, they have childcare responsibilities. Some people work different shift patterns. So really, it's just whoever turns up on the night is just kind of welcome to come along for a run. We don't have any requirements of, well, you've got to attend so many sessions, or you've got to do this or that. It's just when you feel like attending, you can attend, and then just sort of have a nice time rather than any sort of pressure of different paces or different routes, or having to stay together with different groups or push yourself. So as I say, it's just sort of a bit of a social occasion, and we go and usually visit somewhere nice as well, hopefully.
So obviously you're running all year round, aren't you, as well? So in the winter months, how do you kind of dress for the occasion? How, to make sure you're seen in the
Well, I use my patented 3-layer system. So the most layers I ever get are 3. So that's a base layer, a t-shirt, and then normally like a jacket or a warmer layer over the top. I was given some advice a while ago, which seems like sensible advice, which actually to dress for 10 degrees warmer than you're actually going to experience on the run. So what they say is, and the reason behind that is because your body heats up. So you don't want to be too, like, lots of layers on, and big thick woolly jumpers or things like that. You don't want that. So you tend to keep, as I say, that 3-layer system. The advantage with layers is if you ever wanted to like take off a jacket or take off a very light jumper you've got on, you can sort of vary. Or obviously gloves and hats. It's really important to stay visible, as you say. So we always encourage our members to wear something, to wear some high-vis clothing. So we've actually got a range of Atherton Running Club branded merchandise that is high visibility. Also, when we're out on the trails, just for a safety thing of a night, we always have head torches. Chest lights are very good as well. Any kind of reflective thing that means that motorists can see you. We always risk assess our routes as well. So we always have a think about where we're going, and that's one of the things we've got to be mindful of, is that if there's any kind of very narrow pavements, we'll say, well, just be careful at this point, there's a really narrow pavement, so just take care when stepping into the road. There's some places like locally we don't really like running North Road in Atherton because there's very fast traffic going down there. There's no street lights. So so there's a couple of kind of danger areas that we'll avoid during COVID and stuff like that. I actually found out there was a whole section of the East Lancs that's got absolutely no lights on it either. So you kind of run into the side of the dual carriageway, you've got no lights. So again, we always kind of advise people, just think about where you're going, think about the dangers, even and especially when you're on a trail run as well. You've got to think about, well, where am I going to go? How am I going to get from one place to another? What route am I going to take? What are the conditions underfoot going to be like? Are there hills? Are there rivers, streams you've got to cross? Anything you might encounter out on a trail run as well.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about, dressing appropriately and staying warm, do you do anything for a warm-up or a cool-down, pre and post running?
I'll be honest with you, we're really bad at warming up and cooling and cooling down. So what we tend to do is we tend to kind of maybe start off at like a slightly slower pace just to get kind of warmed up, and then you'll find that after a few minutes, your body's ready to kind of to push on and kind of go forward. And then if you feel any kind of like muscle strains or anything, then it's a good idea at the end to sort of stretch and kind of cool down. Just think about the muscle groups that have been impacted. Make sure you kind of like do say if your calves are tight, there are exercises you can do for your calves, there are exercises you can do for your quads or your hamstrings. So just make sure that you sort of you're kind of quite loose in those muscles, and also sort of listen to your body about thinking, well, is it a good idea if I go running if I've got like this injury or I'm not quite feeling quite right? So we also say to people, think about your own fitness and know your body, and make sure that you're not pushing yourself to any kind of injury.
Yeah. So if we talk a little bit now. So we're in the season where it's probably time for people who have signed themselves up for half marathons and marathons to start getting into the full swing of training. Is there any advice that you would give people at this time?
My biggest advice really is obviously, you know, people who turn up to the club, we've had all different kinds of runners turn up to the club. We've had really quick runners turn up to the club, and we've had, people who've, I don't like to say, but maybe they've had one or two wines over Christmas and they've decided, oh, this is a good idea. I'm going to sign up for the Manchester 10K, the Manchester Half Marathon, even the marathon. And then they kind of get to January and thinking, oh, I better start training for that event. And where we've been kind of really is, so when I first started training for the Manchester Marathon, I kind of had a little bit of a look around online for like the ideal training plan. You've got to then think about, well, what do I want to achieve at the end of the race? Do I want to finish the race? Do I want to finish the race and do an absolutely cracking, time in that race? I've been much more around I want to finish it. I want to get to the finish line, and I want that sense of achievement. Get the medal and everything. I'm not really bothered about how long it takes me in order to do it. So the strategy that really leads people to do is it sort of leads people to say, well, where am I at mileage wise now, and how can I go from where I am to where I want to be at the distance?
Yeah.
And what we've always recommended is most of our runners that have entered these events and been successful, we've just recommended, look, just take a very small increase in mileage every week. If you're running a marathon where your peak training would roughly be around about a 20-mile run that you can go out for, as I say, don't think about pace, don't think about time, think about how long you can sort of like stay on your feet for, how long you can keep going at, and what pace you're sort of comfortable with in order to build up. I always found that it's good to motivate yourself by trying to like plan, I'm going to make it to a certain place and I'm going to come back from that certain place, and then that gives you sort of an incentive to make it there. So for instance, when I did my first half marathon, that involved me running 6 miles from here. I worked out the centre of Wigan is 6 miles away, so I run from here to the centre of Wigan back, and I was like, right, that's 12 miles. So that sort of proves that I can go a mile longer. I'll be brutally honest with you, that wasn't a great strategy for me. And the reason why that didn't turn out very well is because I ran from Atherton to Wigan, which is really flat, and the half marathon was in the Lake District. So as soon as I turned the first corner on the half marathon, I thought, oh dear, haven't quite got this right, because I haven't factored in, well, what's the terrain like? What is the conditions going to be like on the day? So then what we've done since then is kind of think a bit more about that and thinking, well, if I've got to go over hills, then I've got to train for a hill. I've got to go over, if it's like countryside. So don't go out and run on the road. If you're going to do a trail run, try and simulate the conditions as best you can. For the event that you've entered. So it's probably about doing some research, looking at the event, looking at the elevation. Some of our runners, even, they go and look at the people who completed it the last time. They look at all the times that they've done and they try to set a target, within the goal. You've got to be wary. Some races, they operate like a cut-off system as well. So you've got to be at certain places by certain times. So it's worthwhile looking at that and just kind of thinking, well, can I make it to halfway by such and such a time? Can I make it to like the last checkpoint by such and such a time? Other races will just say, look, take as long as you like to complete it. And that gives you a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere, because you're not thinking, I need to get to a certain place in a certain time.
Nice. And then if we just finish off by saying, kind of after you've finished your marathon or your half marathon, what is your recovery like after?
We tend to, at the club, we tend to have a little, so if you've done a big event, then at the end of the big event, you'll probably do like a recovery run. So maybe like a couple of days post, what you'll do is you'll go out and you'll kind of maybe do just like a couple of miles at a slower pace, and that'll kind of get you back into the sort of recovery. And normally within a week or two, you should be back up to running really where you were before the event. The other thing is at the end of an event is to enjoy what you've achieved, and also kind of probably at those kind of longer events as well, you should try and do some kind of stretching and stuff like that, because you've had quite an impact on your body. You also need to replace a lot of the sort of the calories that you've burned during the event as well. So that's a good excuse to have a nice meal at the end of any event that you've competed in.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ian, for your advice. It's been fantastic.
No problem. Thank you very much.